Moving on. Sirius, oh sweet lord, Sirius. Sirius is basically the how not to introduce a character of 2017. For this discussion, I'll disregard anime that are more episodic or have formats that actively support one-shot characters or characters seemingly appearing out of thin air. If you introduce a character without any foreshadowing or plausible purpose for appearing or character development just so that they can resolve any present conflict only to immediately disappear after resolving or in this case not resolving said conflict, that's not a character. That's a deus ex machina. I'm not saying you can't just introduce an important character. Instead, I'm against the way that they did it. Sirius had as much personality as a knife or a gun. In fact, the freaking Dominators from Psycho-Pass have more personality than she does. But Ed, you say in a knowing voice, that was the point of Sirius, a personality-less doll that would absorb and assimilate Althea into her own nothingness. Like dividing by zero, I say, acknowledging your point. Yes, except they are defeated by their own analogy. Sirius can be likened to an empty container. If you put something in an empty jar, that something doesn't disappear and leave the jar empty again. Or if you pour blueberry syrup into water, the syrup doesn't turn colorless. The bloody water turns blue. It's not that the blueberry syrup remains unchanged. It spreads out and mixes with the water, forming something new. My rather on-the-nose analogy is to highlight how badly thought out the plan really was. Sirius was a bad character, contrived I'm certain, because somebody thought two Altheirs were better than one. And yet she could have been so much better. How interesting would it have been had they introduced her earlier and developed her? What if her assimilating Altair was a last desperate attempt to save the world that ultimately failed? Cliché, I know, but it could have been so much better than the empty, pointless character we got, especially since existence and the reason for existence is one of the themes in the anime. Sirius's failure also devastated me because had she been done better, it would have been better than the ending we actually got.
Yeah!
Remember a few minutes ago when I said,
I neither liked nor hated the ending. This doesn't mean I was neutral. Instead, I was rather indifferent with occasional bouts of not knowing how pissed I should be.
it's hard to describe how I feel. A kind of numbness, like I'm suppressing myself because it's just an anime. Don't be pissed. So, this scene.
好きです。
ホロプシコン第23楽章因果再築
Was so fucking awesome, ranked on my all-time list right alongside this.
Her sting is most deadly.
Also, the scene where Setsuna first appears in her white dress sent chills down my spine. I'm honestly not adverse to Setsuna's appearance. I'm happy Altair got to meet her mother. I just didn't want it to end like that, with Altair getting no real punishment for her crimes. Kidnapping, murder, indirect torture, trying to destroy the world, and ripping off Esdet. And she got off with a slap on the wrist, being sent to Yuri heaven with her mother. So they died. That's punishment enough. Except she would have died had her plan succeeded, and Setsuna was already dead. Even if characters are likable, or we can understand where they are coming from, doesn't mean they shouldn't be punished. She was willing to kill almost 7 billion people for the actions of a few. Plus, I leave it up to you to decide if people should be killed for telling lies. I wish the ending had gone the darker route. That is all. Finally, so I don't get too long-winded, I'll be brief with my other points. 1. Altair was too overpowered. interesting to watch, but almost impossible to resolve without the asshole they had to use. 2. Mamika's Blast. How did the Japanese government run damage control and contain information on the equivalent of a nuclear bomb going off in their capital city? Did no one see the giant pink blast and the damage it left? And even if they kept it from their own citizens, how did they keep it secret from the rest of the world? 3. Mamika's death was rendered irrelevant by the end. I don't think he was even mentioned after a certain point. 4. The creators, the ones in the show, did not go insane in the end or become unable to create. This despite knowing they have the fates of entire worlds in their hands and are killing, raping, and torturing people for other people's entertainment. You would have to be a sociopath to not be affected by this. This was one of the things I was particularly interested in seeing how the series would handle, but in the end they chickened out. 5. They should have dropped Sota after a certain point or lessened his importance. The show did not need a main character, and we, the audience, did not need some boring guy to project ourselves onto. I liked him, but I believe his importance was forced. 6. What happened to Magane? 7. We should have got to see more of the worlds the creations came from. They legit seemed really interesting. 8. The plot holes I mentioned in my reaction video for episode 19 stayed plot holes, and that pisses me off. So, in the interest of time, I might have overlooked things. If there were any issues, inconsistencies, or points that can be discussed or expanded on, please comment on it. And that's it. See you next time.